Being on God's team is a great way to put it, because that's exactly what you do. You switch sides. You were once outside looking in. Now you're on the inside, and you're understanding God, and you're living with Him day by day. It is the most radical transformation possible. I look back on my life and I realized that the major turning points, there was a turning point when I went in the Marines that took a flabby college kid and made him into a man, and I loved it. Great training, great leadership experience. But nothing in my life has compared to being in an automobile, having heard the gospel, trying to drive out of my friend's driveway, and I couldn't because I was crying too hard. Big, tough ex-Marine infantry captain, known as the White House hatchet man. I was crying so hard, and I didn't understand what it was. I just knew I wanted to know God. And I've looked back on that night so many times. That was now 35 years ago. Looked back on that so many times and realized that was the pivot point of my life. Because up until then, I'd been really a pretty miserable guy. I didn't know it. I'd been successful at everything, but I was miserable. From that moment on, and that was in the darkest days of Watergate, when I was facing the possibility of going to prison, and did go to prison, from that day until this day, I have known peace and a measure of fulfillment that I had never known before. I mean, I'd been in the office my office was immediately next to the president's. He'd walk in and out of his office every day. All the power in the world. I mean, I used to sit there in that office in the White House and look out over the South Lawn, the beautifully manicured lawns, and I would think to myself, boy, this is pretty good for a grandson of immigrants. And here I am advising the president, and I'm 40 years old. I mean, how successful I had been all those years, and yet I was empty, and I knew it. I knew it when I helped run President Nixon's 1972 campaign, which was a historic landslide victory. And when it was all over, I thought to myself, there's got to be more to life than this. Mm-hmm. There really does. I went through 6 months of what I call my wilderness experience, when I was feeling, I had everything in the world. I was going back to a law firm that was making hundreds of thousands of dollars for me every year. In those days, a lot of money, and had everything to live for. And yet I felt bankrupt. I felt empty inside. So the night in the driveway, when after testimony of a friend, a witness of a friend, when I called out to God, I didn't even know the right words. You know, you say, how do you get on God's team? It's so incredibly simple in one sense, because I just cried out and said, I didn't know the right words to say. I just cried out and I said, God, take me. Take me the way I am. I'm convicted of my sin. I want to be clean. Make me clean. I remember saying that over and over and over. And the next day I got up and I thought I'd be embarrassed because I'd sat in the driveway for an hour crying. I thought I'd be embarrassed because I never cried and I never showed weakness, and I wouldn't think of that. I felt tremendous. I felt so relieved that I was no longer trying to run my life, but God was running it. I knew that the next day. And then it's just got nothing but stronger and stronger over 35 years. The more that I've lived it, the more I've seen it, the more I've been part of things, the more I realize that this is all that matters in life. We're only here a short time.